This is the gospel of Jesus Christ according to Matthew, the 14th chapter. Jesus made the disciples get in the boat and go ahead to the other side of the Sea of Galilee while he dismissed the crowds. And after he had dismissed the crowds, he went up the mountain by himself to pray. When evening came, he was there alone, but by this time the boat, battered by the waves, was far from the land, for the wind was against them. And early in the morning he came walking towards them on the sea. When the disciples saw him walking on the sea, they were terrified, saying, "It is a ghost!" And they cried out in fear, but immediately Jesus spoke to them, said, "Take heart, it is I, do not be afraid." Peter answered him, "Lord, if it is you, command me to come to you on the water." He said, "Come." So Peter got out of the boat, started walking on the water, and came toward Jesus. When he noticed a strong wind, he became frightened. And beginning to sink, he cried out, "Lord, save me!" Jesus immediately reached out his hand and caught him, saying, "You of little faith, why did you doubt?" When they got into the boat, the wind ceased, and those in the boat worshipped him, saying, "Truly you are the Son of God." This is the gospel of our Lord. Praise to you, O Christ. So Peter, the rock upon whom this church is built, seems to get most things wrong. I think that's why he is a perennial favorite among those of us called to serve this church. It kind of takes the pressure down a notch. Peter is the guy who tried to protect Jesus from the fate that awaited him in Jerusalem, first by trying to prevent him from going there at all, and he gets called Satan for that one. And second, he cuts off a guy's ear who is arresting Jesus, and Jesus is stuck picking up that mess, putting the ear back where it belongs. It seems like Peter is almost always just missing the point. And here, even his faith seems as if it is not enough. Why did you doubt? Well, it's just walking on water in the middle of a storm. Jesus took hold of Peter as he began to sink. That's the point here. We can make all the excuses we want for Peter. We can equivocate and justify that his faith was enough. We can try and figure out how it is he managed to take those first few steps at all. But in the end, when the storm blew, it wasn't Peter who walked on water. It was Jesus. And Jesus took hold of Peter, and Peter didn't drown. And that is, I think, as much, if not more important than anything else that is going on here. I find that many of us have internalized the statement that we have been justified by faith and not works. But just like Peter, we just missed the point. Rather than be comforted as the pressure is taken off, we simply transfer all the pressure from all of the works we could have held up onto this one terribly high stakes work we call faith. That's not any better. It's actually worse. And I don't mean in a we're getting it wrong in a worse way kind of way. I mean trusting in one great work called faith does even less to console us in times of storm and trial than had we been looking at the treasure trove we have built up of righteous works. Because in the end, we can all be frightened when the wind blows. And it can feel like our faith isn't strong enough. See, thankfully, that's not what we mean by faith. Thankfully, this story isn't a cautionary tale about Peter's failure that we should endeavor to overcome. This isn't a story in which Peter drowns. This is a story in which Jesus grabs Peter just before he goes under. So I caution you. When you encounter storms in your life, don't look at this story and think about what Peter is doing. Think about Jesus. Now, yes, Peter does some things that are worthy examples. I think that's another reason why he is a perennial favorite. For all the mistakes he makes, he leaves room for those of us to think we can get it right too. See, Peter did get out of the boat in the first place, and that's a big deal. Those who stayed in the boat, they were also devoted disciples. But only Peter saw the Lord standing out where it was dangerous and said, "Lord, call me. That is where I belong." It's a worthy example. It is. Let's not take that away from Peter. Following Christ will bring us out of the safety of our boats. If we follow Christ, we stand with those whom society has deemed to be worthless. And let's be clear, society will then do the same to us. But that is where Jesus is, out in the waves. It's not safe following Jesus, and taking the first step out of the boat is something. It is a something. It's something Peter did. It's something we can do. Lord, I see that's where you are. Give me the call and I will come. See, I'm not saying Peter isn't the rock upon whom this church was built. I'm not saying he is the heel of all Christian scriptures and has done nothing for us to emulate. What I am saying is that in this story, Peter isn't the lead character. He's a pivotal supporting role, but Jesus is the lead. Jesus is the one who does the action. If we follow him, then the same is going to be true about our stories. We're not the lead. It's hard to see. I don't even want to say it's hard to accept, because that makes it something we do again. We accept that we're not the lead. It's hard to see that Jesus is the one whom this story is about when it's us beginning to sink beneath the waves. It seems pretty much about us in that moment. It does if you've ever been there. Because it seems like it's about us. It seems like there should be something we should be able to do to get ourselves back up on top of the water. I mean, we did get out of the boat, remember? That was a big deal. Why can't we get ourselves back up above the water? It's not works. It's faith that gets you up there, the church says. Oh, those of us who even hear that much say, I get it. If I just believe harder, if I just do faith better, then I will get back on top of the waves. It becomes just another work in our eyes. And because it is now the only one that matters, it is one that I find we are more frightened to admit to falling short of than we are of the waters themselves. We are more afraid of admitting to our fears than we are to the thing that has caused us the fear. I can't count the number of times I have sat in a hospital room or a courthouse with someone who has encountered a terrible trial. And I can see the fear roiling behind their eyes. And they say to me, I know, Pastor, I just need to believe. I just need to believe. Well, if your belief is giving you comfort, then yes, great. But if you're having trouble, don't deny that. That isn't faith. Denying where it is that you are, denying that the waters are becoming troubled, that's not faith. You see, the next thing Peter gets right in this story is he admits it when he is scared. Lord, save me. Faith isn't about what we, the heroes of our own stories, believe. It's not something we do at all. A faith that justifies, pulls back the curtain and reveals to us that we are not the leads even in our own stories. We are supporting roles in God's eternal story. It's okay to be frightened and find that we can't do the thing that we thought we were called to do. Because God can. It's still God's story. Now, I know our culture doesn't like to hear that it's not about us. We find very little value in something that isn't about how I can personally become a better me. We want to be the hero of our own story. And faith, when given to us, tears away that illusion. You can't walk on water, Peter. But it doesn't matter. Because I can, says Jesus. And it's not your story. Let me take your hand. It's not our story, people. All of us. We're all playing supporting roles, and that's upsetting in a culture that bases all value upon personal improvement. If it's not about me, we say, then what good is it to me? Well, the church says it doesn't really matter what good it is to each of us, because it's not about us. But I do promise you this. Once it is revealed to us that we are all, every single one of us, bit parts, it does change the way we live together. Wholly and completely. We can no longer consider ourselves more important than anyone else in the story. And that changes every single moment. Everything we do is different with that shift in perception. And that doesn't make any of us better people. It doesn't improve us. The winds still blow. But in God's story, that does bring the kingdom just a little bit closer to earth. It's not our story. That kingdom comes with or without us, but when the disciples asked Jesus to teach them to pray, he taught them to pray with boldness that it comes for them as well. So when baptism calls all of us out of the boat into that dangerous thing called ministry, may we have the same boldness to pray that it comes for us as well. And when Jesus takes hold of us, may it be a sign to those in the boat that he is truly the Son of God.